Hello, welcome to AOK Games, and this is a rapid, maybe not rapid review. How do you review a product that's sub $20 US currency off sale from the Microsoft in-game marketplace, the Sobo store there, by a company named Braveairspace? Now, I have not heard of these developers before, but that doesn't mean anything other than I'm probably just misinformed or not informed at all. So, a few disclaimers here. One, the price isn't study level. Two, I'm going to throw something on the screen right here. And you'll notice it says in part that for this plane essentially to work, you have to have installed the premium deluxe version of the flight simulator, and you must have the installed 78710 for this to work. So that is a premium deluxe thing as the prerequisite. And you'll see by a lot of the other things, if you want to pause the video, some of the information there, not all of it. It does come with several liveries there, liveries, however you want to call it. So you have some options here. I chose the Braveairspace one because I thought it looked really nice, as they mostly all do, for sure. I have not loaded into a lot of them. But based off of the quality here, I'm liking what I'm seeing. With this rapid review, obviously the intent is to provide the details so that you can make your own decisions. We're out here today at Honolulu International in Hawaii, and I have to say, you know, this engine shroud here in this polished metal stainless steel look, or whatever we got going on here, it looks really... quite frankly, I'm kind of surprised at the level of detail there, to be honest with you. For a sub $20 plane, not study level, you can clearly see that time has been spent on the details here. I mean, man, you can even read those signs there. The pitot-static port? That's small writing. Wow. If I could draw your attention, I thought this was kind of funny, to your 12 o'clock position there. It is labeled by them. I did not write this as, quote, not the Asobo model. So that's entertainment in itself. Fly that around. Kind of catchy. So, you know, as always, I'm looking at all the details here, and I'm seeing just as much detail in the underside of the wing there with their words. I mean, I'm looking at the backside of the engine here towards the hot section, and we're seeing the discolored metal there. Looks pretty nice. You've got directly dead ahead some wear lines, dirt, rain, whatever you would call it, even on the gear, the leading edges, going more towards the trailing edge. Oh wow, look at that. There's more. This is like one of those wash me signs that people write in the car. This is something, probably not an Airbus A350. So you've got those janky mechanics writing things into the paint there. I like the detail in the tires and the rims. Those are quite nicely modeled for rims on a $20 airplane. Come back here and you, let's see, we get closer to the landing gear. You can see the trailing links, the springs, and the brake pucks there. Wow, that's a little unexpected for sub $20 plane. And naturally we have to go and look in here. I see, I guess, you know, to be nitpicky, those look like paintings, like drawing paintings, but are you really going to be hiding out in there unless you're trying to get a free flight to the mainland or something? Doubtful. Kind of inconsequential if you were to ask me. Let's check out the main underside of the fuselage. More wearing. Nice angles here in terms of the geometry. I'm not seeing any like harsh edges or anything like that. Rivet lines. Let's go to the top side. Details and the textures. I like how they threw the patina on there, but they didn't make it look like an ancient aircraft, as a 787 would not be an ancient aircraft, obviously. The one thing I'd like to do is go ahead and work my way towards the front of the airplane, the nose. I like looking in the engine there. Look at that. You can even see the high pass or high bypass blade in the front, blades, excuse me, in the front of the engine there. That's really nice looking, the way that it's very see-through and visually pleasing to look at. It's a very smooth airplane in terms of its design lines. Of course, that has nothing to do with, you know, necessarily the modeling in here, just the actual real-life aircraft. And I'm looking here at this hinge point on this cargo door, and it caught my eye because that looks pretty intricate, you know, in my opinion, the way that that would swing open and upwards, even to the fact that that is modeled to such high precision, I think, speaks volumes about the attention to care that was put into this. Now, I will say, obviously, I'm not a 787 pilot, so I have no idea how to set up the FMS or program this airplane. So if I do not do it justice, it's likely my fault. But, you know, that caveat aside, I think it's important to, regardless, check out the exterior model. First and foremost, before we hop into the pilot and command position. Nice looking nose wheel lights there. Nice landing gear, doors and links. And I like the wear on the tires. Those tires are obviously not brand new. And the wheels look like they show some brake dust, maybe? Well, obviously not brake dust. There's no there's no brakes on the nose wheel of an aircraft. So I rest my case. But they do have, barring my ignorance aside, a patina to them. Slightly blurry texture in the center cap there, but really, I mean, when those things go up into the nose gear wheel well there, is that something that I'm going to complain about? No, not necessarily. You know, which brings me to another point. Let me go ahead and zoom on in here real quick, because that nose cap there had less than ideal textures, but then it's like, if you come in here and you look at even just some of these stickers, the fact that that inner gear door folds up, but you can read that, is interesting in the fact that you can't read the external wheel plate really so much. But here, maybe it's due to the font size on the sticker or the data plate, I don't know, but it is what it is. I'm just here presenting what I see. You know, that being said, I think it's a nice looking model. Performance-wise, we'll find out what it is. I'm not going to be doing an entire flight, as I am no 787 Pro, previously divulged, but I will fly it around the island and see how it takes off and how it lands. But externally, I mean, I like what I see here. Remember, the price point is sub $20. So let's hop inside. Okay, now that we're at the pilot in command, another quick disclaimer. So this aircraft, I had to zoom out my field of view extensively. Mine is usually set between anywhere from 40 to 50 in the view camera range there, but this I had to slide all the way down 50% to 0, because it gives you a whole heck of a lot of zoom in. I mean, it's almost like that, which is not enough to be able to read the panels and displays and all that. So that's just something that I noticed. I do like the patina here that they have with the dust slash grime on these display units. And I'm looking around, and we'll see what we can and cannot click to a decent degree. Duncan, I'm not going to say the last name because I am not sponsored by anybody, so I don't advertise for free. But we all know what that is. It's coffee. And it's nice looking in here. I mean, as you can see, I'm clicking around, and you would know if there was anywheres to press buttons, fiddle with windows. So far, none of that is clickable. That's not necessarily because it's a default Asobo aircraft essential flight management systems, as it pretty much seems to be described as. So we'll keep that in mind, of course. Okay, we've got some clickables here. Obviously, this is not clickable. In-op, meaning inoperative. So, you know, I guess if you see an in-op, obviously don't even bother. But so we've got an outer and an inner knob for brightness. They all move. That's cool. Map lights, clock reset or start, mic button not operable. These buttons here, of course, you can press the reset. And then all of your heading course, knob selectors, autopilots, auto throttles. Clickable, not clickable, clickable. Okay, sorry, this is kind of cumbersome, but I just want you to see what's going on here. No transfer, no IIS mock. Presumably the same for the co-pilot side. Okay, so looking here, we've got our standby HSI. At least you can set the barometric pressure. Doesn't appear anything else though. Gear, naturally. Auto brakes, reject takeoff, max, so on and so forth. That works. MCDU. Sure. Then our little mouse pad here that we would control our on-screen displays for the clickables. Not operable. However, I wonder if that's simulated because, as you can see, I can click here. So in the real world, you would use this. But on here, perhaps you would use this to touch the displays. I think that that's a compromise, but I like it anyways because this is more efficient for Flight Simulator. Naturally, the throttles work. Flaps. Trim cutout, cannot manipulate them. Tail trim. Parking brake. Fire knobs, not operable, but then again, if it's not study level and there's no built-in or random failures, you would not have an engine fire, obviously. Okay, so your VHF radios work. VOR left and rights. And a large portion of this obviously not workable. Let's pan around here. Front door lock. Nope. So you know, if you can't get in and out of the cabin in the front and the back, I guess obviously there's not going to be a door lock for the flight deck. Usable. Moving around. Same order here. Same buttons usable. Lights, no. OBS, no. And turnable for lights. Okay. All right, so that we know what that is. Okay, I guess that's a let's remove this, pre-programmed. I guess not. Is that what I think it is? Okay, I was gonna say, is this literally the flight deck recording people in the bathroom? It's not. However, with that sign on the outside stating that this is not an Asobo aircraft, it just makes me wonder if this is also another joke. Thank God there's no toilet spies there. Got some water here. Obviously no opening windows. Okay, overhead panel. Heads-up displays. I do believe they work. Signs, lights, anti-ice. Pressurization, automatic. No manipulation here for the outflow valve, either positive or negative rate. Cabin temperatures, air conditioning's pack, pressurization. Cool. All right, engine controls, start normal. Now the engine can start, you can actually start both engines on the 787, I believe, at the same time because they are not turned by high pressure air from the APU. So that's really nice. You can just save time there. So a lot of these things are clickable and a lot of them are not. Now, you can be the judge of that in terms of the fidelity and the way that they look. They do look nice, more than acceptable. I mean, this is a pleasant space if you're going to spend 7,300 nautical miles or thereabouts in. I'd like to see this, so let me get set up here, set my views all up, and we'll try to power this thing up and see what all the systems offer. I'll save you the details of programming the FMS because, again, I'm not a 787 captain, but we'll get it ready for takeoff and we'll power it up, the usual, fly around the island, get some external shots, and then I'll get my final opinions. So be right back once we're prepped. Okay, so basically after just taking a little bit of look-sees here, we can start the battery, but we can also start the APU. And what I would like to see, of course, is can we look down here and see these systems? That's cool. What I like about this is I like how it looks. I like the fidelity here. This is not, it doesn't look like a cheap sub $20 heads-up display unit here, I guess. Well, not technically heads-up display, but you get what I'm saying. This thing here has a nice look to it. It looks tactile and it looks functional as opposed to just very cheap and flimsy. I don't know if that makes sense, but if you can see the textures in the cabin here, you can kind of tell that this is absolutely not a low-level aircraft in terms of the way that at least everything looks. So you do have that. I'm trying to start this up. Of course, these aircraft are very complex in the real world, so trying to do a rapid review on an aircraft like this is difficult, but I want to give you as much as I can without actually having to have you wait the entire time. So that's working there, but of course, as it always goes, we need to turn our IRSs on, inertial reference systems. I'm not sure if there's a time for that. I'm sure it needs to warm up, but for argument's sake of illustration, you can kind of just plug that in there, and it seems as though, if what I'm noticing is correct, it seems to be pretty quick, right? Like there's no warm-up time for the IRSs or anything. So if you want something that doesn't have failures built in, sorry, my view's a little bit too far aft there. If you want something that doesn't have a whole bunch of procedures you have to follow, like a Phoenix 320 or a Tolis A340 or something of that nature, this might be a decent cup of tea, especially if you can get 7,000 plus nautical miles out of it. So let me go ahead and keeping on with starting this aircraft up. Let's get it all programmed, and I'll tell you post what I've gone through to get to that point, and then we'll taxi it out, which is where I'll bring you back, and we'll take it off and experience the takeoff together. So, be right back. Okay, so I've made quite a bit of a liar out of myself. I figured the only fair thing to do would be show you guys the aircraft in terms of the system's fidelity and this, I guess, built-in electronic flight bag, essentially. Now, I'm not able to click on any of these. I don't know what the deal with that is, but they do have an initialized flight, and they do have a performance calculator. I've been monkeying with this for a while. I've been trying to copy. I can't figure it out. Some aspects of it work. Others I'm just not familiar with. As I said, you know, this is basically a product review, but I just want to let you see the pages so that you know there is an initialized flight and there's a performance, at least at the time of this review. So theoretically, you could get all kinds of performance stats and things. And then if we look over here, performance and initialization page for the zero fuel weight, it gives us 292.4. If I try to replug that into zero fuel weight, nothing happens. You can type in successfully reserves. I've tried that. That works fine. Cruising altitude of 10,000, cost index, that all works. You've got air temperatures here, right? You can plug in all kinds of stuff. You can select what kind of takeoff power you want, what kind of climb you want. And these are all systems that do seem to be modeled, in all fairness, to a relatively very accurate sense here. I don't know basically if all of this works, but I am trying to program it. I just want to show you what all of these pages look like, right? Because I want you to see, yes, this is to a degree programmed into the aircraft, but I am not an Airbus expert. So that being said, if we come and we look at our weights, I don't know if it'll calculate our V1, 2, and rotate, but there are numbers that we can plug in here. So let's just say takeoff gross weight. We're going to say we are, well, what's the plane tell us? The plane tells us that we have 111.7, and that we are going to be, I'm going to say we are 223.6. If I can even type. 223.6. So it gives us our speeds there, and we can program them in. Naturally, I'm just using the weight and balance here because I just want to see, well, actually, that's actually the wrong number. We're talking about fuel weight here. So our weight is 404,125. So let me put that in and see. 404.2. There we go. Updated. So it does make calculations in accordance with the numbers that you plug in, which is cool. So you can see we do have a bit of fuel in here, about 50% total, but our total takeoff weight, because we have, you know, passengers on board, is higher than what it would be if we just had 0 passengers. So there is that. I had to tell it that there was a runway 8 left. Now what I'd like to do is go ahead and let's turn on some lights. Let's just turn on everything because we want to just play with all the buttons here and make sure that they all work. Yeah, fantastic. Let's see if we can do that with the startup. Now this obviously does not theoretically depend on the bleed air for the packs, because essentially these are electric powered starters. That's all great. Looking up here, sorry for the awkward angles. Okay, just looking to turn all of the lights off, and let's go ahead and try to start this now. So that would mean we need to come over here, start, and then let's just see if we can read the instrument and listen for the sounds. Now these are the Trent engines on this one. Rotation and fuel. Okay, so I have programmed this in my unprofessionalistic ways to the best of my ability. I believe most of our information is on there, so we'll go ahead and set up for takeoff, and then I will go ahead and bring you back on the active taxi just before we hit 8 left for the initial takeoff run. Okay, and welcome to 8 left on the threshold here. Seems as though we've got all error messages and everything cleared up. Both engines seem to be running fine. And I noticed there's also a whole bunch of nice pages here. Fuel, hydraulics, air pressure for cabin pressurization, gears, you've got tire pressures there. You've got flight control surfaces 3 incorrect. Maintenance not available, EFIS not available, CV not available. But that's okay, that's okay. We'll stay on the flight control page and we'll go ahead, remove the APU, and we'll get on out of here. So, first takeoff experience for me, one thing I did notice is that I actually had to go from that 0 zoom back to the 50%, which my simulator defaults to on this fresh install. Service update 15. I'm not sure why it was super zoomed in when I first loaded the aircraft, but I had to obviously change that, and it's gotten better, but I've had to go back. See what happens when I zoom out one time? It gets super far, so I don't know what that is, but that's one notch. Click on the mouse, scroll wheel down, and it goes to an unfathomably far out spot in the zoom. So not sure what that is, but it's just what I'm experiencing here. So I also noticed a little bit of flashing in the interior. I don't know if that was the strobe light shadows messing up the textures or whatever. I don't know, but I did notice a little bit about that. Not overly distracting. Not going to really fly too much with the autopilot, but here we go. Trent's coming alive. Telling me about my configuration from my flaps. We're going to ignore that, essentially not because of the aircraft, but because I fly with the Airbus TCA, and that has the pre-select detents, so I can't really go to 5 without there being a problem. V rotate, and let's pull back. Wish I could figure that zoom thing out. So, positive rate, gear up, and flying out of Honolulu. Just bring the flaps up and bring the power down just a little bit here. Was hoping to see maybe like a climb setting. There we go. Climb right there. On the ICAS letting us know that we are essentially in the climb setting. A lot of power in this aircraft, I can tell right away. The sounds are really cool. I don't necessarily fly the 787. In fact, I barely ever fly it. I may have tested it once or twice, so my professionalism, again, is not there. But it sounds really cool. And it flies pretty smooth, I have to say, as you would imagine a fly-by-wire modern-day Boeing would. Let's go outside and get some exterior. Notice the contrails there, that's nice. And just manipulating the throttles here because I just want to hear the variation in the audio. Definitely a lot of power in this aircraft for sure. Okay. Everything's peachy keen. Almost at 10,000 feet for our flight level. We're staying right here in Honolulu. There you go. We should make an epic landing, hopefully, on that water strip there, right? Like, let's get the let's get the full visual of Honolulu out our front window. When we're on final approach, be looking on past that towards Diamond Head Crater. And descending now below 10,000. Do not want to go above 250 knots indicated. But I'm just going to basically fly what you would fly in a small airplane pattern. Straight out, turn right, go straight, turn right, come in for a landing. So, to spare you the boredom of that, let's go ahead and quick cut to the final approach. Okay, so here we are on that final. Went ahead and turned around there, but I also wanted to show you those camera angles of the right wing because I noticed that there was wing flicks and it was a really nice smooth animation of that. So I'm surprised for sub $20. I don't know how much this is recycled from the Premium Deluxe Asobo, other than it seems like the avionics. While we're talking about that, let's go ahead and bring the heads-up display in there so that we can see that does indeed work as well. And we're just going to fly straight in, 8 right. Honolulu, Diamond Head, right off of our nose. And the aircraft flies like it does indeed have some weight. Now, keep in mind, of course, I went from Honolulu to Honolulu, so there was no sim brief planning here or anything of that nature, basically. So we're not going to be able to have, let's put the gear down, we're not going to be able to have the full experience of programming in our flight. But I will say this, I feel as though this aircraft is worth the time investment, at least for me. Sub $20 to take on long flights. I'm not too sure, of course, with all the buttons and things, if it's, you know, the performance calculator down here on the left, on the scratch pad thingy, EFB. I'm not sure if that's an issue, but with the way that, you know, the buttons work and are programmed. However, even if that is my fault or isn't my fault, the flight model here feels very weighted, and I know that, you know, in their call-outs for the product description, that was one of the things that they were focusing on, the flight model. And, you know, I don't have anything to compare it to in terms of another 787, but it's nice enough that it feels weighted, and I am literally talking to you on final approach in a 787 that I have never flown before. Reverse thrust, speed brakes. Brakes up, flaps up, and brakes. One thing I will say, I noticed right away off of the brakes, make sure you are calculating your landing distances if indeed you decide to purchase this, because the brakes have a very weighted feel to them. This isn't one of those stop in an instant type of experiences. So it'll take you a little while. This is a rather long runway, 8 right. But I mean, look out the windows. You know, supposing you fly from like somewheres in Japan or maybe somewheres from Australia or New Zealand to here, maybe even San Francisco, do the long haul, and this is what you're greeted with. This is one of the beauty things about the Bing Maps and Flight Simulator. You can have the fidelity of the texture details and the displays down here. And when you're looking at that combined with the scenery outside, that little bit of FPS hit there, moving the mouse around. But this is indeed being recorded in 4K, and this is DLC aircraft with seemingly high detail textures and absolutely a DLC airport. It's no wonder. But it was very manageable. I think the landing shows that for itself, that it was an aircraft that is capable of, as long as it's flying 7,000 plus nautical miles, as it's stated in the descriptor there for when you're picking your aircraft and your selection type. 7,300 nautical miles is a long time to look out of the pilot in command position. So if you don't like what you see, it's not a long haul plane that you would want to be in, as there's a lot of long haul planes that do offer study level, but this was sub $20. So the refinement here, in my opinion, obviously let the audience be the judge. And, please leave your comments down below on what you think. As far as wanting to spend more time in this aircraft, I think this is something that I would definitely try to invest time into. It's worth at least that much. But, yeah. Let's go ahead and taxi it up and park. And I think you know how I feel about it. And just like that, we'll cut the fuel flow and turn the aircraft off completely. There we go. We'll leave the APU off and we'll just leave everything like that. Surprising amount of click spaces for sure. 20 bucks? Okay. So there you have it. Braveairspace 787. And I'm even hearing sounds of the high bypass fans clattering because they're not under centrifugal load anymore. Neat. So anyhow, until next video, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.